Hello everybody, and welcome to another installment of Marvin's Garden. And this is a special day because it is the first full day of fall, which of course means we are shooting the September garden video. And we have distinguished guests as always. That's Cassie's bud, actually. There's Cassie. Hi, Cassie. And over here we have Mr. Franklin. And you will notice that he's enjoying a freshly picked, partially green tomato. And we still got stuff happening, even though it's the first day of fall, first full day of fall. Sometimes I like to shoot the garden video when the actual autumnal equinox is happening. But this year it was happening at 3:50 a.m. So I decided to pass on that and instead settle for the first full day of fall instead of the first day of fall. Anyway, so let's start over here in bed number 1. Now there's a curiosity in bed number 1. That's the volunteer tomato plant that I just let go for the heck of it. And buried down in here, which I'm not going to be able to show you very well, are some small tomatoes. Let's see, can you see those? Not very well. But there are some small tomatoes there. No telling what you'll get, because they could be kind of a crossbreed, so they might not even taste any good. But other than that, here in bed 1, you can see back there are a later planting of carrots, as are these 2 rows here, thinned recently and doing pretty well. And then this is late plantings of brassicas. I think most of those look like they're cauliflowers, and they're really not doing much. And in fact, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with a lot of my later plantings of brassicas this year. I did pull a small cabbage, and that's another small one that's probably should be pulled. And this is the latest planting of broccoli, and they're coming in okay. I don't know if we'll get anything from them before the weather really gets cold, which is I think the same thing I said last month. But let me show you. I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I missed something here that's at least worth looking at, and that's this right here, which is a small but decent cauliflower that is coming in and is definitely harvestable and definitely edible, and we will harvest it and eat it. And also we got a fairly nice looking small broccoli here, and now that I'm looking, I see that there's a couple more coming in. So we're at least getting a little something here and there. Most of these carrots, which was not the latest but the second to latest planting, have been pulled. I left behind the ones that look like they still might have some room left to grow, and they're doing okay. Kale has been, as kale usually is, consistent all season long. It just keeps producing leaves, and we harvest them from the bottom up. Sometimes we don't get around to harvesting them before they go. But it's a very good crop. I think I've finally got the white flies under control, although they're not totally gone. I ended up with a fogging combination that seemed to work pretty well. And then we have our volunteer canna lily there. It came up. I think we'll pot that and bring it inside, so because it won't last the winter. And then I've got a curious thing going on with the artichokes. That is a little tiny artichoke there on a plant that's already had an artichoke. but these artichokes seems to go one of two ways. They either show lots of life and continue to grow, as in this one right here, or they decide, well, I've done my artichoke for the year, so I'm done for, as in that one right there. And so we've got a mixture of plants here. I don't think we'll get any more artichokes out of them, but some of them are looking very healthy. We also have Brussels sprouts growing in here, and really not producing much of anything, although they're still hanging on there. Who knows? Maybe they'll get a second spurt. Since this is the first full day of fall, I'll tell you, if we stand here at the end of the solar panels and kind of put the camera parallel to the back of the solar panels, what you see is a sun setting due west. I mean, like real, true due west. I suppose it might be a little different from the yesterday, but nothing that you could observe. So that's kind of fun to come out here and see how perfectly it is aligned with the solar panels, as it well should be. And while we're here, there's some more excitement. I'll tell you, the old compost / manure heap, I'm going to get another trailer load pretty soon and really beef it up before we start putting it on the beds. Now, here's something that you didn't see last time, and that's that this grow house is now wide open by using these little, screen doors that have the magnets on them. I saw them at my stepdaughter's house, and thought that might actually work out here. And so far they work great. They stay closed. Even the the self-adhering glue that they put on the strips, which I don't expect to last, so far is holding up fine. Now that brings us to the actual vines in there. As you can see, they are now starting to deteriorate some, but I kind of expect that at this time of the season, now that we're deep into September. And but you can also see that there's plenty of healthy leaves too. So all in all, like I said the last time, I think this experiment worked as far as keeping bugs out and keeping the vines relatively healthy. But of course, we haven't had much of any production, so that's the downside. But we have ways of dealing with that, we think, next season. Now, interestingly enough, what you see right there, I don't know if you can see the little bulbous green growth behind that blossom, but that's actually a female pumpkin. Usually, if they get that far, they then just turn around and abort, so that might happen here, but you never know. I certainly won't get into a full-size pumpkin with the amount of season that is left here. Now, Frankie is sniffing around in the these volunteer ground cherries, and we've had an abundance of ground cherries this year, some from ones we planted and some from ones that just came up by themselves. And of course, they're one of Frankie's favorite fruits. And look at our rosemary. It was so slow to start, but these are just really nice plants. And of course, we've used rosemary in several dishes and such. And I think I might try to see if I can pot these and bring them inside, and see if they can winter over. We'll try it, because it looks like they're small enough that they can be containerized. This is another row of ground cherries, and of course, as you might remember, this is what they look like when they're ready to be eaten. And we'll see if Frankie wants one. Frankie, you want a ground cherry? Here, boy. You want this? There you go. Good boy. I'll have the other one, okay? And my camera work might be leaving a little bit to be desired, but I have all kinds of drone footage that I will try to intersperse here for you at one point or another. And maybe some other stuff that I can't even remember that I shot stills. But importantly, you might see that that is a zucchini. And in fact, it is a zucchini. Not only is it a zucchini plant, but it's a real live zucchini. And there's one on the other end too. I don't think I can show it to you without running over there. But as you may recall, these are the late plantings of summer squash that I did. I did one plant on either end of the row, and they're already producing. This is number 3 and number 4, I think, of the zucchinis. And I'll show you at the other end too, because we have scallop squash also coming in. But these tall plants here are a variety of sunflower, and they're starting to bud, as are the ones right next to them. So we're hopeful that we'll get some blooms out of those guys. And way down low here, you can see a row of scallions, and those are Nebuchadnezzar, which we've had a lot of luck with. And then we got a lot of flowers coming next. This is a stock flower called Cat's Formula, and they're doing okay, but I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of them. They seem to be kind of slow growing, but not slow growing are these nasturtiums. These are trailing nasturtiums, and they're just taking over. In fact, they're kind of crowding out this florist blue boy that's also coming in well, except for it's getting crowded out by the nasturtium and the borage, which is right here and budding nicely. So it looks like we'll get some blooms out of them. And this is another sunflower, a dwarf sunflower, and nicely budding, so I'm sure we're going to get some blooms out of that. And then another row of nasturtium. These are called the Empress of India. I think they might be a more unusual color, but I can't remember. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll get some blooms. And this is a very small variety of marigold called Lemon Gem, also looking fine. And look at this, we got spinach that actually looks healthy, and not only that, harvestable. So once again, this bed seems to do pretty well with spinach for whatever reason. And if you look close down there, you can see a couple of radishes, and we've harvested most of this row of radishes, which came in really quick, and but we left a few there that look like they might have room to get bigger, so that's all that's left over there. But here, let me show you the other summer squash success story. And boy, as I explained last month, I never thought of actually planting summer squash this late in the season, but they have such a quick turnaround time that I'm getting loads of scallop squash. As you can see, these sunbursts, and these sunbursts are just delicious, delightful little squash. And I don't know, there's at least a half dozen under there, and we've already pulled a couple. So that's fun. I'm going to remember that from this point on, to always have an option to plant those guys late in the season. Okay, that brings us to bed number, let's see, I did number these, 1, 2, 3, and peppers, which have been doing well all season. These are the bigger, blockier ones. The worst thing that we have happening with the peppers this time of year is that the branches keep breaking. You can probably see that one right there. That's very typical. So we lose some production with that, but other than that, they're doing well. And then we're on to tomatoes. That's a nice looking one that looks like it's ready to be picked. And that's a big beef. Although our big beefs didn't get really all that big. Actually, our tomato plants didn't really get all that big. Some years they just go crazy. These are New Girl. You can see there's a few there that are ready. Granadero, which is more of a Italian paste tomato, and of course the old favorite Juliet, and it looks like there's quite a few that have ended up on the ground, so we haven't been doing our job out here, and the dogs haven't eaten that many either. All right, that brings us over here to bed number 4, and what we got is a row of borage here, which is the same flower that I showed you over on the other bed, even though we got kind of a vacancy in the middle there. Other than that, they're coming in fine. A nice stand of bib lettuce. Newham is the variety, and looks like maybe they need to be thinned out or partially harvested. And then our scallions are still doing just great. We grilled a bunch of those with peppers the other night, and they were just fantastic. I do want to look up, I'm afraid to leave them much longer because I'm afraid they're going to deteriorate, but I'm not really sure the best way to store them once they're picked, so I'll get back to you on that. Then we got a row of bok choy here, or pak choy, depending on your preference, and another row of a lettuce, a cutting mix lettuce, which I usually don't bother with mixes, but these are coming in nice, and got a nice variety and nice variety of color. I guess probably the most prolific peppers are these here, being Goddess, and they've just been coming in like crazy all season long. And in here we got Mellow Star, and there's an interesting thing. Every once in a while I get a pepper plant that just gives up the ghost all of a sudden for no particular reason. I would wonder if maybe something got to the roots or something underneath there, but just, every once in a while one of them goes, and luckily it doesn't seem to be spread to the other plants, so that's good. Then we've got our I forget the name of them, L something, and I can't see the label because everything is falling down here, but it's L Eden peppers, a long, slender, mildly hot, if that's not an oxymoron, pepper. They're supposed to be a little zingy, but not very zingy. And then eggplants have just been producing all season long and doing just fine. They're coming in smaller these days, but boy, like I've said before, those guys cut thick and grilled with a little spices and olive oil. Ooh, baby. All right, that brings us to the jungle of peanuts. Again, very encouraged about the fact that they've bushed up so much, and that we've seen some actual peanuts that have been unearthed by the dogs, and just waiting until they either start deteriorating or we get a threat of frost coming in, and that's when we'll harvest those guys. Now we do have a couple of celeriac, and these are all celeriac that were direct seeded, because my one seedling that survived didn't survive long, so that's all we have this year. Not doing too well with celeriac this year. This is our ground cherries from seedlings that we started inside, and you can kind of see that they're sort of past their prime, but they've been producing and still are. So that's good. We've had a great year for them, much to Frankie's delight. And then we've got okra, which has also been very consistent, although with the okra, every once in a while a plant just gives up the ghost too, and that's what happened to this one here. And some of them just stay small, but enough of them were planted that they're doing pretty well, and you actually can see a bloom here if I can get around, which is unusual that it's still open at this time of night. But anyway, lots of good okra, and plenty to keep ahead of me, and I'm the only okra fan in the household, so that's the way that goes. Now the cages are kind of tipping over here for the green beans, but they have also been producing very solidly all season long. There's one that could be harvested any old time. And as you can see up here, if you don't get seasick from me swinging the camera around so much, but that's a bunch of blooms, which will of course turn into green beans. Over here we got, just for fun, a bunch of zinnias. Obviously I planted all of the same color here for whatever reason. Doing just great. Nice pop of color. And in our Sky Manor Marsh department, you can see down there's a water hyacinth that is blooming, and next to it you can see a cattail plant that I got off of eBay that's coming up, and there's a few more of those, plus the ones that I discovered in the quote-unquote wild and planted. They're doing okay too. We've had a much drier season all the way around this year. Everything's kind of dried up nicely this summer, and in fact, for the last several days, the 10-day forecast has not had a single drop of rain in it. So, of course, with our little watering system here, we're fine. So it's nice that it's not so crazy wet. Oh, and look who's here. It's the French ballerina. She's just back from doing some planting in one of her other properties. And, of course, the dogs are always happy to see her and follow her around. So let me show you what has amounted to be the summer spaghetti squash harvest. And there they are. We got 5 of them, and that's about it. But they look fine, and at least we got something out of the deal. And of course, these are just some of the larger sunflowers that we're drying in here, and we'll keep those seeds. We've been planting our own sunflower seeds for several years now, and other than the new varieties that I started late this summer, that's all we've been growing. So I'm abruptly interrupting this broadcast because I forgot to shoot asparagus. So I'm interjecting this video that was shot the next day, so you can see asparagus. And the reason I kind of want to show you asparagus is because we did a whole lot of work out here, and it was well overdue for weeding, as you might have recalled from the last video. So we came out here and did massive weeding, particularly the perimeter, which had been overlooked for quite some time, and put down newspaper mulch and hay mulch on top of that. And so now things look much more in control out here. The weeds weren't too bad with the plants, because I had been keeping ahead of that, but it had gotten really nasty around the perimeter. And I did notice that the sprouts are continuing to come up. There were some like brand new shoots coming up, even as we were doing that late September weeding. So I am encouraged about that we might get many shoots to harvest, even though the harvest duration will be short next year, because it is on the very first year that you actually do some harvesting. But it should be the first thing we harvest next garden season. All right, now let's return to your regularly scheduled Marvin Gardens September video. So, I hear Cassie off here. She thinks she has a frog cornered, which she probably does, because she's pretty good at frog hunting. But one of the joys of the garden, frog hunting. Atta girl, get it. Did you get it? Okay. Well, if she did, we don't want to show you that anyway because it's kind of gory. Got a nice little cluster of marigolds here, and before we wrap up, I'll just take you out back here and we'll take a look at the pond, and then as the crickets are chirping, we'll be done for the evening. Those are our summer lights as opposed to our Christmas lights, which will be coming up all too soon. Here's the pond, and I got in there and kind of trimmed back and cut through a bunch of the plants that were just taking over everything. You couldn't even see any rocks on the waterfall anymore. So that's all doing pretty good. Fish are still active. We have lots and lots of little frogs all over the place, from I think the tadpoles that I rescued from a puddle earlier in the summer. They're finally finding their way into the pond here. I don't know if you can see that head is just sticking up right there. I'll probably digitally zoom in so you can take a look too. But I think that pretty much is going to do it. As you can see, there's lots of leaves on the ground. Some of the leaves fall early to signal the fact that fall is in fact coming. We got the pool up and or put away, and put down some grass seed in the spots that are lacking. And that's about it. I mean, I mean, it was just chilly enough out today, just barely, to put on a jacket. It was breezy when I started, but it's pretty much dead calm now. So I don't think I have anything else to show you, really. We've got no fruit to show you. We haven't got a fire pit going, so I can't show you that. Although there might be some in the drone footage. And other than that, I guess it's Frankie I might be able to show you if I can get the camera turned around. He's right there, sniffing around. Oh, Cassie's still frog hunting. We've still got our water features, little half bucket plantings going here, and I need to pull some of those pond iris seeds and plant them maybe over in the marsh. But that is going to do it for September 2019. So from Marvin Gardens and Jolie and the French ballerina Venina, and of course the dachshunds wherever they are, hope your fall is getting off to a good start and you're having a fine time, and if you've got a garden going, I hope it's doing well, and we'll see you next month in October when it really turns into fall. But that's gonna do it for now. Talk to you later, y'all. Bye.